The day the CEO replaced me with his son was the same day he thanked me for saving his company. My name is Ellen Harper, and for the past year, I had been the person everyone called when something broke, when a client threatened to leave, when the numbers stopped making sense. I was the one who built the software that kept the company breathing. I wrote it line by line, tested it myself, and stayed awake night after night fixing problems no one else understood. When I arrived, the company was bankrupt in everything but paperwork. When that year ended, it was reporting 9-figure profit for the first time in its history. That morning, the CEO stood in front of the staff and said my name only once. "Ellen has done excellent technical work," he said, smiling politely. "But from today forward, we need leadership that represents the future. My son, Ryan, will be stepping in as chief executive." People clapped. Some avoided my eyes. Ryan nodded like he had earned it. After the applause died down, I pulled the CEO aside. I kept my voice steady. "You promised this role was earned by results," I said. "You've seen the numbers. You know who built this." He laughed, not loudly, but enough to make his point. He reached into his pocket, pulled out a single bill, and pressed it into my hand. $100, he said. "That's your real value. You should take it and be grateful." I looked at the bill. Then I looked at him. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I thanked him, turned around, and walked out of the building without another word. What he did not understand was that I did not leave empty-handed. The story you are about to hear is a fictional work created by the writing team at Revengeaita. It is designed to explore themes of power, loyalty, and consequences in the workplace. While inspired by real emotions and real-world dynamics, all characters, companies, and events are fictional. That night, I did not sleep. I reviewed documents I had written months earlier, agreements no one bothered to read closely. By the time morning came, the company was still standing, but it no longer belonged to the people who thought I was disposable. I met the CEO for the first time in a glass-walled conference room overlooking the financial district. He didn't waste time on pleasantries. "We're running out of weeks," he said, sliding a thin folder across the table. "Not months, weeks." I opened it and skimmed the reports. Legacy clients threatening to walk. Systems patched so many times no one remembered what the original code looked like. Missed deadlines. Penalty clauses. "This is unstable," I said. "One bad day could shut everything down." He leaned back in his chair, studying me. "That's why you're here, Ellen." "I'm not here to perform miracles," I replied. "I'm here to fix what can be fixed." He nodded quickly, like someone agreeing because there was no other option. "Your title will be head of systems. You'll report directly to me." I waited. "An authority?" I asked. "You'll have operational control," he said. Then added, "Within reason." That was the first red flag. I ignored it. A senior manager cleared his throat. "Just so we're aligned, Ellen, the board is very sensitive right now. Any disruption could scare investors." I looked at him. "The disruption already happened. You're just living with the delay." Silence followed. The CEO broke it. "Fix the system," he said. "And you'll never have to worry about your place here." I held his gaze. "I'm not asking for protection. I'm asking for trust." "You'll have it," he said, too quickly. Over the next days, every conversation sounded the same. A developer whispered, "No one's touched this code in years." An account manager said, "Clients only stay because switching costs too much." Another exec warned me, "Don't step on toes. People here guard their territory." I worked anyway. Late nights, early mornings. I rewrote processes others were afraid to touch. One evening, as I packed up, the CEO stopped by my desk. "You're moving fast. I don't have a choice," I said. He smiled. "Neither do we." That was the moment I understood the imbalance. I was risking my reputation. He was risking nothing but time. Still, I stayed. Because when a company is freezing, someone has to go into the cold first. The system did not fail all at once. It failed quietly, in ways that only showed up when clients were already angry. "This report is wrong again," said Mark from finance, standing behind my chair. "If this goes out, we breach contract." "Give me 10 minutes, I said, without looking up. "You said that yesterday." "I fixed yesterday," I replied. "This is a different problem." By the end of the first month, I was no longer fixing errors. I was replacing the entire foundation. I wrote new logic to cut duplicate processes. rerouted workflows that wasted labor, and built compliance checks that ran automatically instead of relying on human reminders. One night, a developer named Luis leaned over my screen. "No one's ever touched this layer before. That's why it's breaking," I said. The CEO started stopping by more often. He never asked how the system worked. "Clients are calmer," he said one evening. "What did you change?" "I made it cheaper to operate and harder to fail," I answered. He nodded, satisfied without understanding. The first legacy client to renew called me directly. "I don't know what you did," she said, "but the errors stopped. I want you on every call from now on." After that, the calls didn't stop. "Can Ellen review this before we sign? Is Ellen available this afternoon?" I don't trust the numbers unless Ellen confirms them. In meetings, people stopped looking at the executive team and started looking at me. Mark said it once, half joking. "If Ellen quits, we're finished." The room went quiet. The revenue curve changed next. Loss flattened, then reversed. Growth followed, faster than anyone expected. Departments that had been marked for layoffs were suddenly hiring again. The CEO clapped me on the shoulder one morning. "You're making me look very smart." I didn't smile. "I'm making the system stable." He laughed. "Same thing." It wasn't the same thing. I could feel it shifting. Trust was moving away from titles and toward results. Every fix made me more essential. Every success made someone else less comfortable. I kept working anyway, because the company needed the system to survive, and I needed proof that I was not replaceable. That proof would matter sooner than I expected. Ryan showed up to his first strategy meeting without an introduction. He sat beside his father, opened a leather notebook, and smiled at the room like he already belonged there. "We need to think bigger," Ryan said, tapping his pen. "This is about vision, not just systems." I looked at him. "Which part of the system are you referring to?" He hesitated for half a second. "All of it. The overall architecture. That architecture is what's keeping our largest client compliant," I said. "If you want changes, we need specifics." Ryan glanced at his father. The CEO cleared his throat. "Ellen, let's not get too deep into details right now," he said. "We're talking direction." Direction. That word started replacing answers. In the weeks that followed, my calendar changed. Meetings I used to lead were moved without notice. Decisions were made before I was informed. During one review, I spoke up. "This rollout schedule ignores the testing window." Ryan waved a hand. "We'll figure it out as we go. That's how outages happen," I said. The CEO cut in. "Let's stay flexible." After the meeting, I passed the conference room and heard my name. "She's very capable," the CEO said quietly. "But she's technical." Ryan replied. "Exactly. We need someone who can inspire confidence. Investors don't care about code. She's done her part," the CEO said. "Now we need leadership." I stepped away before they saw me. Later that day, Mark from finance stopped by my desk. "You're not on the executive review anymore." "I wasn't told," I said. He lowered his voice. "Between us, this doesn't feel accidental." Ryan started presenting numbers I had prepared. He skipped explanations and spoke in polished phrases. "Operational efficiency," he said once, glancing at my chart. "That's the takeaway." Afterward, he leaned toward me. "You should be proud. This wouldn't exist without you. It wouldn't function without me either," I said. He smiled politely. "That's not how leadership works." That was when it became clear. My work wasn't the problem. My influence was. Results had given me leverage, and leverage made them nervous. From that moment on, I stopped expecting fairness and started paying attention to control. The CEO took the microphone with a practiced smile, the kind meant to reassure people who had already made up their minds. "This year has been extraordinary," he said. "What we've achieved together proves what teamwork can do." Teamwork. He let the word hang there. Broad enough to mean nothing. He thanked the sales department. He thanked operations. He thanked the board for their patience during challenging times. My name did not come up once. I stood near the back with the engineers. Luis shifted beside me. "Did he forget you?" he whispered. "I don't think so," I said. The CEO cleared his throat. "As we celebrate this milestone, it's also time to look ahead." Ryan stepped closer to the stage. The movement was subtle, rehearsed. "From today forward," the CEO continued, "my son will be leading the company as chief executive. He represents the future of this organization." Applause broke out immediately, not enthusiastic, but obedient. Chairs scraped, hands clapped. I felt every sound hit me at once, then fade. Ryan nodded, soaking it in. He didn't look at me. I stayed where I was. My body felt heavy, like the floor had shifted just enough to throw off my balance. Mark glanced back, his expression tight. No one said my name. No one explained anything. When the clapping stopped, the CEO raised his hand again. "This transition has been carefully considered," he said. "Our technical foundation is solid, and now it's time for strategic leadership." That was it. No discussion, no acknowledgement, no warning. Ryan took the microphone. "I'm excited to build on what's been started here," he said. "We'll be moving fast." People turned toward the bar. Conversations resumed, louder than before, as if nothing had happened. Louis leaned close. "Are you okay?" I nodded once. "I need a minute." I walked toward the exit, my ears ringing, my mind painfully clear. This was not a mistake. It was too clean, too public, too final. By the time the doors closed behind me, I understood something important. You don't announce a decision like that unless it has already been decided for a long time. I found the CEO alone in his office. Jacket off, tie loosened. Scrolling through messages like nothing unusual had happened. "We need to talk," I said. He didn't look up. "Make it quick. It's a busy night." "You replaced me without a word," I said, "after everything I built." He finally raised his eyes, calm and mildly amused. "Ellen, don't take this personally. I didn't realize there was another way to take it," he sighed, as if explaining something obvious to a child. "You were brought in to fix a problem. You fixed it. That doesn't make you permanent." "Permanent," I repeated. "I ran this system. I held every major client together, and you were compensated for that," he said very fairly. I stepped closer. "You promised me stability. You said I wouldn't have to worry about my place here." He stood, walked to his desk drawer, and pulled out a single bill. He placed it in my palm and closed my fingers around it. $100, he said. "This is what you should focus on, what you were hired to do, not what you imagined you were becoming." I opened my hand and looked at it. "You should be grateful," he continued. "Most people get nothing when they're done." I waited for the anger. It didn't come. What I felt instead was something sharp and quiet, like a door closing. "So that's it," I said. "After a year like this," he shrugged. "You were temporary help." "Ellen, don't confuse effort with ownership." I nodded once. "Thank you for clarifying." His eyebrows lifted slightly. "That's it." "That's it," I said. I placed the bill back on his desk, smoothed it flat, and stepped away. "Good luck," I added. He smiled. Already turning back to his screen. "You'll land on your feet. Someone like you always does." I walked out without another word. The hallway felt longer than it had before. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't answer. I went straight to my desk, packed only what I needed, and left the building quietly. Outside, the night air was cold and steady. I folded the $100 carefully and slipped it into my wallet. Not as payment, as a reminder of exactly who they thought I was. I submitted my resignation before midnight. No speech, no accusations. Just a single sentence confirming my departure, effective immediately. Human Resources replied within minutes, formal and relieved. Luis caught me at the elevator. "You're really leaving?" "Yes," I said. "That's it." His voice dropped. "After everything, that's it," I repeated. He shook his head slowly. "They're making a mistake." "They already did," I said, and stepped inside. By morning, my access badge no longer worked. I expected that. What I didn't expect was how quiet everything felt. No calls, no messages from leadership. Just a few short texts from coworkers who didn't know what to say. Mark wrote, "I'm sorry." Another message followed. "This doesn't feel right." I didn't respond. Around noon, my phone rang. The CEO's number flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. That night, I opened my laptop and logged into a system I still had full authority over. Not theirs. Mine. The contracts were exactly as I remembered. Clear language, clean signatures, clauses no one had questioned because no one thought they would matter. I activated the first notice with a few keystrokes, then the second. Each one triggered automatically, timed and compliant. No warnings were sent, no alarms sounded. I didn't delete anything. I didn't lock anyone out. I simply withdrew what I was no longer obligated to provide. At 11:30, My phone buzzed again. The CEO, this time by text. We need to talk. I placed the phone face down and closed my laptop. I didn't feel victorious. I felt calm. Calm in a way that comes from preparation, not anger. They believed silence meant surrender. They believed I had walked away empty-handed. That belief would last until the morning. My phone started ringing just after 9. I let it ring twice before answering. Ellen, the CEO said, breathless. We have a situation, I'm aware, I said. The system isn't responding. Transactions are stuck. Clients are calling nonstop. It's responding, I replied, just not to you. There was a pause. What does that mean? It means the licensing period ended, I said, and I am no longer obligated to extend it. That's not possible, he snapped. You can't just shut us down. I didn't shut anything down, I said evenly. I withdrew access. There's a difference. I heard another voice in the background. Ryan, tell her to fix it, he said. This is getting out of hand. The CEO covered the phone. Ryan says the team is working on a workaround. Which team, I asked. Silence. The developers didn't come in, the CEO said finally. No one can reach them. They don't work for you, I said. They work for my company. Their contracts ended when mine did. Ryan's voice rose. That's not how companies work. That's exactly how contracts work, I said. A notification chimed on my screen. A message from a client I recognized immediately. We are pausing operations until Ellen Harper confirms system stability. Another followed, then another. The CEO's voice cracked. We're losing control of this. No, I said. You already lost it. Ryan grabbed the phone. You're doing this out of spite. I'm doing this because you thought leadership was interchangeable. I said, it isn't. He scoffed. We'll replace you. You already did. I replied. The line went quiet. By noon, the board was calling emergency meetings. By mid-afternoon, Ryan stopped giving orders and started asking questions he couldn't answer. I sat at my desk, watching the notifications roll in, not with satisfaction, but with certainty. They had mistaken ownership for understanding, and now the company was learning the difference. One silent system at a time. The CEO asked me to meet him that afternoon, not in his office, in the smaller boardroom, the one without windows. He stood when I entered. Ryan was already there, pacing. You did this on purpose, Ryan said the moment he saw me. You're sabotaging the company. I took a seat and placed something on the table between us. A single bill, folded once, $100, I said. You gave this to me and called it my value. The CEO looked at it, then away. This isn't the time for theatrics. It's exactly the time, I replied. Because now we're going to be honest. He exhaled slowly. What do you want? I don't want anything, I said. I'm here to explain what happens next, Ryan scoffed. We'll replace your system. We'll hire someone else. You've been trying since this morning, I said. How's that going? He opened his mouth. The CEO raised a hand. Ryan stopped. I leaned forward. You have 2 options. Option 1, you keep your son in charge. The company doesn't collapse today. It just bleeds. Clients leave one by one. Regulators start asking questions. You spend the next year explaining why everything that worked suddenly doesn't. The CEO swallowed. Option 2, I continued. You reverse the announcement, publicly. You restore my authority over the system and operations. I relicense the software. The developers return. Clients resume service. Ryan slammed his hand on the table. You can't blackmail us like this. This isn't blackmail, I said. This is leverage you ignored when it was quiet. The CEO turned to his son. Enough. Ryan stared at him. You're choosing her over me. I'm choosing the company, the CEO said. He reached for the folder I had placed beside the bill. His hand shook as he signed. This decision will be corrected, he said quietly. Effective immediately. I stood. Send the notice, then I'll restore access. He nodded once. As I walked toward the door, I heard Ryan say my name. I didn't turn around. The paper on the table felt heavier than victory. The announcement went out within the hour, short, precise, correcting the earlier decision and restoring operational authority to me. No explanations, no apologies. Ryan cleared out his office before the end of the day. He didn't argue this time. He avoided eye contact, nodded stiffly to a few people, and left without saying goodbye. By the following week, His name was quietly removed from internal documents. No scandal followed him, only silence and a reputation that no longer carried weight. The CEO stayed, but not in the way he once had. He stopped issuing directives and started asking questions. Months later, he stepped back entirely, citing personal reasons. His legacy settled into something smaller than he had planned. Defined not by growth, but by a lesson learned too late, I remained, not as a favor, not as a compromise. Every agreement was rewritten, authority clarified, ownership documented in language no one could ignore again. When people spoke to me now, they didn't praise my dedication, they asked for my decisions. One afternoon, the CEO approached my desk, hands folded. "You could have walked away," he said. "I did walk away," I replied. "You just didn't realize what I was carrying," he nodded slowly. "I see it now." I watched him leave, not with satisfaction, but with distance. I didn't win by destroying anyone. I won by refusing to be erased, by making my work visible in ways that could not be dismissed or minimized. Before the story ends, I want to leave you with this life lesson. Never confuse silence with weakness. Never assume the person doing the real work has no power simply because they are not the loudest voice in the room. Titles can be handed out. Respect cannot. And your true value is not what someone offers you in dismissal, but what remains when you choose not to disappear.